The first season of the Netflix Castlevania series came out earlier this month, and the general consensus among fans is, it's good. The biggest complaint seems to be that the season was too short, which is not really much of a complaint. Luckily for those of us that want more, Season 2 has already been confirmed. And this time we will be treated to a slightly more substantial hunk of 8 episodes, rather than 4. How long will we have to wait for this? According to Netflix, probably a full year.
1 year.
But I want it now! If you're like me and need a little something to tide you over until Season 2 comes out, I will list 5 movies or series you need to see if you like the Netflix Castlevania series, and in chronological order. Because there are already a lot of vampire movie lists out there, I will go a little off the beaten path for this video to give some recommendations that I feel capture a similar atmosphere or feel to the Castlevania series. The classic vampire movies like Nosferatu, Dracula, the Hammer Dracula series, and Bram Stoker's Dracula are all great, but I'm gonna keep it a bit more Castlevania specific for this list. Keep in mind, like the Castlevania series, none of these picks are for the faint of heart, so let's get started.
Be warned.
I'm sure I understand.
I said I wouldn't mention the Hammer Dracula series, but this often overlooked Hammer gem isn't part of it. In fact, 1974's Captain Chronos Vampire Hunter may be a bigger inspiration for the original Castlevania game than Hammer's Dracula films, although those were definitely an influence as well. The story follows the former soldier turned vampire hunter Captain Chronos and his hunchback sidekick Professor Grost. The pair are called in by Chronos' old military buddy, Dr. Marcus, to solve some mysterious murders in his village. You're probably guessing they found the bodies of young women with 2 bloody puncture wounds in their neck. But actually, when the young women are found, they are not young anymore. The vampire in this village consumes youth, not blood. When Dr. Marcus encounters a local aristocrat, Paul Durward, he begins to suspect the Durward clan's involvement in these strange murders. Some investigation by the dynamic duo, Chronos and Grost, reveals the plot is a bit thicker than that. Chronos will need to use a specially forged blade and all his skill with it to end the reign of terror on this village.
This is God's blade, forged for your black heart.
The travesty of Captain Chronos is that the film was intended to be the first in a series, but financial problems at Hammer Film Productions prevented this. Chronos was far from the first on-screen vampire hunter, but he may have set the whole badass warrior who carries a katana trend among hunters. And clearly he would fit right in among the Belmont clan, despite his lack of a whip. Of course, I couldn't only recommend live-action films for people that like an animated series. Next, we have an animated adaptation of a Japanese novel series about a vampire hunter in the future. The Vampire Hunter D novels, as well as their 1985 film adaptation, predate the Castlevania games, and were very likely a huge influence on them. The story follows the half-vampire or Dhampir contract hunter, known only as D. We meet D in a post-apocalyptic world that looks a bit like the Old West, but also contains some very advanced technology. D is hired by Doris Lang, the daughter of a hunter who was killed by the powerful vampire lord, Count Magnus Lee. Doris herself was bitten by Lee and will become one of his brides if D can't do something about it. Luckily for Doris, D is no ordinary hunter. His powers rival that of the oldest vampires, and the talking parasite on his left hand also gives him an edge in magical matters.
Damn, gotta move.
Count Lee sends his monsters and mutants to eliminate D, but the Dhampir manages to overcome these deadly foes. Finally, as D faces off with their master, Count Lee guesses D's true identity and the reason for his great power.
No, it can't be. You.
As a modestly budgeted OVA anime of the mid-80s, Vampire Hunter D is a little stiff and clunky in its animation style, but it was definitely a trendsetter for the horror anime genre. The dark gothic horror elements combined with futuristic imagery and unapologetic animated violence were an influence on many an anime that came after it, including the Castlevania series. Castlevania is of course not a futuristic fantasy, but rather a dark medieval tale like this next recommendation. There have been a few animated adaptations of Berserk over the years, but if you're like me and prefer traditional animation to that whole CGI cell shading look, you're better off sticking with the 1997-98 series. The story follows Guts, who first appears as a lone mercenary called the Black Swordsman, wielding a ginormous sword. After an introduction in which Guts tracks down and slays a demon called the Snake Baron, the narrative slips back a few years into the past. As a young man, Guts is recruited by Griffith, the leader of a powerful mercenary group called the Band of the Hawk. Over time, the band becomes the closest thing Guts has to a family, and Griffith his greatest friend. But Griffith's ambition to rule is unquenchable. When Griffith draws on the dark power of his amulet, the Crimson Behelit, not even his allies are safe, and Guts must face off with his former friend to save the world from darkness and exact some much-deserved vengeance. Like the Castlevania series, Berserk is not afraid of a little animated blood, or massive amounts of it for that matter. Both stories could easily be the inspiration for a death metal song, and the world they inhabit the setting for the music video. Although I should warn you, Berserk is a lot more disturbing than Castlevania in places. There is no shortage of darkness, creepiness, or epic badassery in Berserk, making it a choice watch for a Castlevania fan if they can handle it.
Interesting. I accept your challenge.
Next up, we have the 15 years later sequel to the original Vampire Hunter D anime. The 2000 film Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri of Ninja Scroll fame. Adi Shankar cited both Ninja Scroll and Vampire Hunter D as influences on the Castlevania series, so you can see how Bloodlust is a must-watch for Castlevania fans. The story picks up with everyone's favorite Dhampir, D, who takes on a contract to retrieve a girl apparently kidnapped by the vampire Meyer Link. However, D is not the only hunter after this bounty. A team known as the Marcus Brothers are also pursuing Link.
Right there.
Both parties soon realize this contract is far more than they bargained for. Link has hired the powerful mutant clan, the Barbaroi, to protect him. What's more, if the hunters manage to get by the Barbaroi, Link's carriage is heading toward a haunted castle ruled by the long-dead vampire queen, Carmella. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is probably lesser known than the first film, but far surpasses its predecessor in story, character development, and animation. The stunning visuals evoke the art of the illustrator for the novels, Yoshitaka Amano, an artist who I suspect influenced the look of the Castlevania series as well. Not to mention, D himself rocks a very Alucard-like look, with that long hair and 80s metal fashion accessories.
You really are entertaining me, Mr. Stranger.
Speaking of Alucard, my next recommendation includes another version of Alucard, although a much different one. The 2006 to 2012 OVA anime series, Helsing Ultimate, is about a special agency called the Helsing Organization that is dedicated to protecting Britain from vampires and other supernatural entities. Its top agent happens to be the most powerful vampire in existence, Alucard. Due to his defeat by Abraham Van Helsing over a century earlier, Alucard is now a servant to the Helsing Organization, and its current head, Integra Helsing. The organization's rival is the Iscariot, a secret branch of the Vatican also dedicated to eradicating evil. And while these two forces should be allies, they are in fact bitter enemies due to religious and ideological differences.
You've turned your back on God!
To make matters worse, a former wing of Nazi forces called Millennium that created vampiric super soldiers during World War II returns and threatens both organizations in a new bid for world domination. Alucard and his policewoman-turned-vampire sidekick, Ceres, will have to face off with Millennium as well as Iscariot in an epic three-way supernatural holy war.
Here standeth the bird of Hermes, eating mine own wings!
Like the three previous recommendations, Helsing Ultimate doesn't skimp out on the animated blood or gore, and in fact, it might be the most disturbing of all my recommendations so far, while also being the most darkly humorous. It borrows from the Dracula novel, occult lore, as well as Vatican and World War II conspiracy theory, mixing them all together into some epic anime insanity. If you thought the Castlevania games got a little weird and crazy in places, Helsing Ultimate has all that, and then some. Okay, way more than some.
Excellent. I haven't had this much fun in ages.
Well, those are my 5 recommendations for fans of the Netflix Castlevania series. If you've seen any of these already, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below. And if you haven't seen them, go watch them now, then come back to this video and let me know your thoughts. Or, if you have any other recommendations for fans of Castlevania, Let me know those as well in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos about the Castlevania series, the Castlevania games, or Dracula's Castle in Transylvania. Until next time.